So we're gonna make some applesauce. We started by peeling our apples. We tried this apple peeler that hooks to the table. We ended up switching back to our old one later in the video. We also changed apples. These green apples are from our trees. They're really tangy and they're excellent for cooking and baking with, or making the sliced apple pie filling for canning. But I'm not a big fan of them in my applesauce. I really like Fiji type of apples. So I got a bunch of them from a local grocer for $20.
Are apples
so I ended up using those. So you'll see a different type of apples later on. You do not have to peel your apples before making applesauce. You can leave them in to get all the nutrition out of these guys. However, I don't like to have to filter it out. I find that the apple peels don't cook down as well as they should. Although I do leave my applesauce a little bit chunky, as you'll see later. Nothing is more satisfying than these apple peelers, though. Look at that apple ribbon. So for this applesauce, I ended up making about 10 pounds of apples. So I peeled most of it off. I'm not really worried about how clean the peel is. Before I peel them, I wash my apples in water and apple cider because they are store-bought, even though they're organic. I put water and lemon juice in the pot to keep the apples from sticking in the bottom. Not necessary to add the lemon juice, but I like it to keep my applesauce from turning too brown. Now this is how I core apples. I just slice around the core. You can do it any way you like. You can use a little apple slicer. This is my preferred way of doing it. I give a lot of my kitchen scraps to my chickens because I don't have other farm animals at the moment. But apple cores are not okay for chickens. So as of right now, they just go to the compost. I cook down my apples until they get a little bit mushy. I cook them on medium heat, medium low. I try not to bring them to a rolling boil because I don't want to get them stuck to the bottom of my pan. Okay, so I filled my pot. I do not recommend. I saw in another video someone said they save their apple cores to make apple cider vinegar. I would love to do that. I might do that, might not, depends on how involved it is. You can even cook your apples down in a crock pot. You can make your applesauce thicker or more watery, just add water to it or cook it down longer. Since I filled my pot so high, I did put a lid on it just to cook everything nice and even. It does not need to come to a rolling boil. You kind of just want to simmer. You can see here that the apples are really just dissolving when you squish them. It's perfect for applesauce. You really can't overdo it as far as cooking it down. I do not add anything to my applesauce, but you can add about 2 cups for the 10 pounds of apples that I used. There's a measurement that you can add like a 1/4 cup for every so many pints of apples, but really the best rule of thumb is go by taste. I also don't add any cinnamon or any flavoring unless I'm having an actual bowl of applesauce. Also, it would have been wonderful to have a ladle. Could not find it, so I just used a little kitchen spoon. When you're filling your jars, you do want to leave headspace for applesauce. The bottom line is 1/2 inch. The top line is about 1/4 inch on ball jars. I went just under, so I left about 1 inch of headspace. I don't heat my jars ahead of time or my lids, although you can. I haven't had any issues with this since they go into a 20-minute water bath afterwards. However, if you don't heat your jars, you want to make sure that the water you put them in is warm or hot. Always wipe down your jars with a clean rag. I just use paper towel and water. You can use paper towel and water and vinegar just to make sure that there's no bacteria on the edges of your lids. When you put your rings on, make sure you only finger tighten them down. Don't screw them extra tight because you want the jar to seal. I use fresh lids and just finger tighten those rings down on the jars so they can hold them on for the water bath. I found a lid here with a little sauce in it, so I did not use that one. I got a clean one instead. It's important that all your lids and jars are nice and clean. For the water bath, you do want your jars to be covered by the water. These bigger jars didn't get covered all the way. I ended up going back and adding a little water to it. This is just the start of a boil, so I actually start my timer when I start to see these kinds of bubbles going. Some people count the tiny bubbles as a boil. Now here we have a rolling boil, and this is about when my timer's up, so it's been about 20 minutes. What I do now is I actually turn off the stove, uncover it, and let it sit in the water as it cools for another 10 minutes. So the 10 minutes is up, so now it's time to take them out of the water bath and set them and forget them for 12 to 24 hours while they sit on the counter on a cloth to cure. That's it. There you have it, homemade applesauce.